Thank you for joining us today for the Product Development and Market Strategies SCORE podcast. This source is an excerpt from a webinar transcript by SCORE, a nonprofit organization offering free mentorship and resources to small businesses, funded by the SBA. The webinar, led by Tim D'Andrea, a seasoned product development expert, outlines the steps to developing a product from idea to market. Key topics include market research, funding acquisition, intellectual property protection, prototyping phases, compliance testing, and working with development partners, emphasizing the importance of a clear product realization plan and contractual ownership of intellectual property. The presentation concludes with a Q&A session, offering practical advice and resources for aspiring entrepreneurs.
So you've got this amazing idea for a product, right? But then you think about actually making it happen, bringing it to market, and it just feels huge, almost impossible.
Yeah, that's a feeling a lot of people have. It seems incredibly complex, like this massive mountain to climb.
Exactly. Well, welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to try and cut through some of that complexity. Our topic is the product development process from idea to market.
And our mission, really, is to take all that dense information, all those steps, and just pull out the really important stuff for you. We're digging into some great material from a SCORE webinar, looking for those key insights, maybe even some surprising facts.
The goal being that by the end, you'll have a clearer picture, like a roadmap, to feel more empowered on your own journey.
Precisely. A practical roadmap.
And guiding us is our expert who, well, has decades of experience here. Started out building prototypes, worked on projects like Dragon Slayer back in the day.
Yes, that was a while ago. Advanced microcomputer systems.
Right. And then, 2 decades in semiconductors?
Yeah.
Dealing with everyone from tiny startups to the big players?
That's right. Hundreds of companies, all working on new products. You see a lot of patterns,
Yeah.
What works, what doesn't.
And you even mentioned a personal experience, something called the Halcyon system.
Oh, the Halcyon. Yes, that was a learning experience, a home entertainment system that kind of fizzled why, honestly. Not enough market research up front. We jumped into the tech, the build, without really confirming the market demand first. A painful lesson, but it really drives home why those initial steps are so critical.
Okay, let's unpack that then. When someone comes to you, buzzing with an idea, what's the very first question? Is it about how cool the idea is?
Not usually, no. The first, most fundamental question is simpler, but harder. Is there a need for this? What problem does it actually solve for someone?
So problem first, solution second.
Exactly. You have to validate that need. Is it a real problem people are facing? Because often the best products come from identifying that existing pain point first.
Okay, makes sense. So let's say you've identified a genuine problem, a real need. What's next? You don't just start tinkering in the garage.
Well, maybe a little tinkering, but no, not seriously yet. The next step is diving into some pretty critical initial research.
Okay, what kind of research are we talking about?
It's several things, really. You need to estimate the market size.
Yeah.
Like, how many people actually have this problem? Is it a big enough group?
Right.
Then, the product cost target. What would people realistically pay for a solution? Because it tells you what you can afford to spend making it.
Okay, market size, cost target. What else?
Barriers to entry. What hurdles are there? Regulations. Big competitors already dominating. Technical challenges. Also, the patent landscape. Is someone already doing something very similar? Got a patent on it.
Patents. We'll come back to that.
Definitely. And finally, sales channels. How would you actually get this product to the customer? Retail, online, direct. And interestingly, talking to potential channel partners early can give you amazing insights into what the market really wants.
Wow, okay. That's a lot just in the initial research phase. It sounds like you could filter out a lot of ideas right there.
You absolutely can.
Yeah.
And should. Better to find out early.
Okay, so let's talk about that patent landscape piece you mentioned. Intellectual property, IP. The source material really hammered this point home. How vital is sorting this out early?
It's foundational.
Okay.
Seriously. Before you sink significant time, and especially money, you have to do a patent search. The USPTO website is the place to start.
USPTO, okay.
And understand what a patent gives you. In the U.S., generally, it's 20 years of protection. But here's the kicker. The 20 years starts from when you file, not when you launch the product.
Yeah.
So if development takes, say, 3, 4, 5 years.
You've already lost a chunk of your protection time before you even sell anything.
Exactly. So your patent strategy isn't just about if you file, but when and how it aligns with your development timeline. It's about maximizing that commercial window.
That's a really important detail. So what about a provisional patent? I hear that term sometimes. Is that a good shortcut?
It's a good start. A provisional patent gets you a filing date, lets you say patent pending, which can be useful, but it's not full protection. Think of it like reserving a spot. You still have to file the full non-provisional patent later, usually within a year.
Okay, so provisional is step one, maybe, but not the end goal?
Right. Ideally, you want that granted patent before you're showing your detailed product specs to potential partners or manufacturers. It's your shield.
What about NDAs, non-disclosure agreements?
NDAs are important, yes. They offer contractual protection when you discuss your idea. But, the source rightly points out, be cautious with international partners, particularly in some parts of Asia. Enforcement can be tricky.
Tricky meaning they might just run with your idea.
It's a risk. Sometimes you even need to think about designing copy protection into the product itself, like a little black box module they can't easily reverse engineer, protecting your secret sauce.
Wow. Okay, so IP protection is serious business. And speaking of serious, the investment. The source mentioned potentially 7-figure budgets, maybe 1 to 3 years development time, even for things that don't seem that complex.
Absolutely. It's often underestimated. Product development involves engineering, tooling, testing, compliance, marketing. It adds up fast. Even a seemingly simple plastic gadget needs expensive injection molds. That 7 figures and multi-year timeline is realistic for many, many products.
So what does that mean for someone starting out? Just be prepared to write huge checks.
It means plan meticulously. Understand the full scope. Don't just budget for the prototype. Think about tooling, compliance testing, initial inventory, marketing launch costs. It's a major undertaking, and you need that comprehensive plan from day one.
Right. Okay, so you've done the research, you've thought about IP, you're braced for the cost and time. How do you actually build the thing, especially if you're not an engineer or manufacturer yourself? This is where partners come in, right?
Yes, exactly. Very few entrepreneurs do everything themselves. You typically partner with design firms or contract manufacturers for the heavy lifting of development and production.
But how do you engage them effectively? You can't just call them up and say, build my cool idea, can you?
No, definitely not. You need clear, detailed documents. The first is often a request for proposal, RFP, or request for, quote, RFQ.
Okay, RFP, RFQ. What are they?
Think of the RFP as the detailed job description for what you need the partner to do. It contains your product specifications, sometimes called a product requirements document, or PRD. This is the Bible for your product.
The Bible? Meaning?
Everything. What it does, how fast it does it, battery life targets, operating temperatures, the target manufacturing cost, all the critical performance and functional details.
Got it. And the other key document?
The Statement of Work, SOW. This defines the project itself. The specific objectives, the deliverables like 10 alpha prototypes delivered by November 1st, key milestones, the schedule, and crucially, who is responsible for what. Maybe you do the software, they do the hardware. It has to be crystal clear.
Removes all the ambiguity.
Exactly. And good news is, resources like SCORE often have templates for these to get you started.
That's helpful. Now, beyond the technical stuff in the spec, what about how it looks and feels? The industrial design, ID?
Yes. Industrial design. Super important. It's not just aesthetics, so looking good helps. It's about usability. Button placement, menu flow. How intuitive is it? Does it feel good in the hand? ID bridges the gap between the engineering and the end user experience.
Okay, and when you're working with these partners, what are the key financial terms we need to understand? The source mentioned NRE and recurring costs.
Yes, crucial distinction. NRE stands for non-recurring engineering. It's the one-time fee you pay the partner for the development work, the design, the engineering, the project management, maybe even initial tooling design.
One-time costs for development. Got it.
Right. Then you have the recurring cost. This is your per unit cost, also called cost of goods sold, COGS, or sometimes the transfer price if they're manufacturing it for you. It's the cost of materials, labor, assembly, testing for each unit they produce.
So NRE is the setup. Recurring cost is the per item price.
Precisely. And your overall project budget needs to cover both the partner's NRE and recurring costs for initial batches, plus your own internal costs, salaries, travel to visit the partner, maybe trade show expenses. It all adds up.
It really does. Okay, before we get into the actual building phases, the source mentions something called a proof of concept prototype. Sounded kind of rough and ready.
Yeah, a proof of concept, or POC, is often, let's say, function over form. It might be an ugly box with wires, maybe built with expensive development boards, not looking at all like the final product.
So why build it?
His main job is usually to prove the core technology works and, critically, to show potential investors very early on. It says, look, the fundamental idea is feasible. It's often done before a full alpha just to secure that initial buy-in or funding.
Okay, a tool for validation and fundraising. Makes sense. So now we have the idea, the plans, the partners lined up. How does the actual product take shape? You mentioned phases.
Right. Most companies follow some version of a phase gate program plan. It breaks the huge task into manageable stages with clear goals and decision points, the gates between phases.
Okay, phase one.
Phase one is define product. This is largely on paper, maybe some early breadboarding like simple circuit tests. You're brainstorming solutions, investigating technologies, getting initial cost quotes for key components. The main goal, the gate review question is, can we realistically hit the target product cost? If not, you might need to rethink the features or the whole approach.
So feasibility and cost check, basically.
Exactly. Then, if you pass that gate, you move to phase two, alpha design.
Alpha. Okay, what happens here?
This is where the detailed engineering happens. Designing the schematics, writing the software, doing the mechanical CAD work. And you build the first real integrated alpha prototypes.
What are those like? Are they like the final product?
They look maybe somewhat like the final product, often using rapid prototyping like 3D printing for enclosures, maybe machine parts. But functionally, they might be heavier, bigger, more expensive. Maybe the battery doesn't last as long because you're often using off-the-shelf parts or components that aren't optimized for cost or size yet.
And it works.
It works enough to test the core functionality. And crucially, this is where you start getting into the hands of actual customers for initial market testing.
Ah, okay. So the alpha isn't just for engineers, it's for user feedback too.
Absolutely vital. You need that real-world feedback early. Does it solve their problem? Is it easy enough to use? What's missing? What's confusing? That feedback drives the refinements for the next phase.
Which is
phase three, beta design. The focus here shifts significantly towards cost reduction and manufacturability. You're replacing those 3D printed parts with designs for injection molding, optimizing the circuit boards for volume production, refining the software based on alpha feedback.
So making it cheaper to build and better based on user input.
Exactly. You might add or enhance features too. Yeah. The goal of the beta phase is to get to a design that the target market is happy with and that you can build at your target cost. The beta unit is usually what you take for compliance testing too.
Compliance, like FCC and safety.
Yep, we'll touch on that more. But beta is usually the candidate for that. Then comes phase four, pilot production.
Pilot. Sounds like a trial run.
That's exactly what it is. You set up a small-scale version of the actual production line, you finalize assembly instructions, trained assembly operators, not your expensive engineers, and build a limited quantity, maybe 50 or 100 units.
Why not just jump to full production?
Because you need to iron out the kinks in the manufacturing process. Do the instructions make sense? Are the tools right? Can the operators build it consistently and efficiently? It's a dress rehearsal before the main performance.
Okay, find the production problems on a small batch. Smart.
Very smart. Saves a lot of headaches and money later. And finally, if the pilot run goes well, you pass the gate to phase five, full rollout production. This is mass production, either continuous manufacturing or producing in batches, depending on the product and volume.
The finish line, sort of.
The manufacturing finish line, yes. Then comes selling it.
Right. So going back a bit, once you have those prototypes, alpha or beta, or even earlier, with just mock-ups or presentations, how do you really dig into assessing the market and figuring out how to sell?
Great question. Market assessment is ongoing. You need to identify your specific target customers and also potential distributors or retailers, your channel partners.
And you just talk to them.
You talk to them, you show them things. Sketches, PowerPoint decks, maybe simple physical mock-ups they can hold. Even cardboard or basic 3D prints work early on. Get their reaction. Does it resonate? You'll need a solid pitch deck and a business plan too, not just for investors, but to clearly articulate the value proposition to customers and partners.
What about getting feedback more broadly?
Tools like SurveyMonkey can be useful for reaching more people, getting quantitative data, but response rates can be low, and the feedback might not be as deep as a direct conversation.
Makes sense.
Leveraging those channel partners is often huge. Distributors, retailers, they know their market inside out. They can tell you if your features are right, if your price point works. Trade shows are another key venue.
Go exhibit?
Maybe eventually. But even just walking the relevant trade shows early on is invaluable. See your competitors, see what solutions are out there, talk to people. You learn so much.
What about things like branding?
Yeah, brand licensing could be an option for some products. If you develop, say, a new type of printer accessory, maybe you license the HP brand to get instant market recognition. It costs, obviously, but it can give you leverage.
And always keeping an eye on what's already out there.
Constantly. You need to know the existing solutions inside out. What do they cost? What are their weaknesses? Why is your product genuinely better? You need clear answers to those questions.
Okay, that leads perfectly into funding. We talked about the potential costs. Where does the money come from, especially if you're not independently wealthy?
Funding. Always a big topic. There are quite a few avenues. The traditional ones are still there. Bank loans, maybe refinancing your house. Those can be tough for early stage product ideas.
A bit risky, personally.
Can be. Then there's friends and family, often the first stop for smaller amounts seed money to get those initial prototypes or patents done. More recently, crowdfunding platforms have become huge, especially for consumer products. Kickstarter, Indiegogo.
Yeah, we see those all the time.
They can be great for validation and funding. But for larger sums, you're typically looking at angel investors, usually high net worth individuals investing their own money, maybe 100K, up to 500K, sometimes less. Or venture capital, VCs.
The big guns?
Generally, yeah. VCs are firms managing other people's money, typically investing larger amounts, say 500K, and often much, much more. The key thing with both angels and VCs is they will take an equity stake in your company. You're giving up ownership for capital.
That's a big decision.
Huge. And when you approach them, you need your ducks in a row. A solid multi-year R&D plan, a detailed manufacturing budget showing costs for materials, labor, overhead, projected out over several years. They want to see the whole financial picture and the path to profitability.
Right, they're investing for a return. Okay, so you've got funding, you're working with partners. What about protecting yourself in that relationship? You mentioned IP ownership earlier.
Yes, absolutely critical. When you hire a design firm or manufacturer, your contract must explicitly state that you, the client, own all the resulting intellectual property.
All of it. Like
everything. Any patents generated, the detailed electronic schematics, the software source code, the mechanical CAD drawings, the tooling designs, all of it should belong to you.
What happens if that's not clear?
The source mentioned terrible scenarios. I've seen it too. The partner might claim ownership or co-ownership, effectively holding your product hostage or preventing you from switching manufacturers later. It can kill a business.
Wow, so get that contract right.
Get it right, and don't be afraid to assert your role. You're the customer. You're paying the bills. Demand regular updates, checkpoints, maybe even plan visits to their facility. Maintain oversight.
Good advice. And another protection piece mentioned was compliance testing, FCC, safety. Why is that so important?
Because, well, first, it's often legally required. Any electronic device with a microprocessor, basically anything digital, emits electrical noise. The FCC has limits, Class A for industrial, Class B stricter for consumer, to prevent your gadget from interfering with radios, TVs, other devices.
So you have to test for that.
You have to test, and often you need to design for it, adding filters, shielding. It's usually the beta prototype that goes to a certified lab for FCC testing. If you fail, you have to tweak the design and retest, which costs time and money.
Okay. FCC for interference. What about safety? UL, TUV.
Right. Safety testing through labs like UL, TUV, Intertech is about ensuring your product won't electrocute someone, overheat, catch fire, or otherwise cause harm. It's crucial for liability avoiding lawsuits and often required to sell into major retailers or specific markets, especially for medical devices, but even for many consumer goods.
And that's also typically done on the beta unit.
Usually, yes. You want the design to be pretty stable before you pay for expensive compliance testing. Skipping or failing compliance can stop your launch cold.
Man, it really feels like a minefield sometimes. So many things to manage. It must feel lonely for entrepreneurs. Are there places to get help? Guidance?
Absolutely. Might feel lonely, but you don't have to go it alone. There's a whole ecosystem of support out there. SCORE, which provided the Source webinar, is a fantastic example.
Tell me more about SCORE.
They're an SBA-funded nonprofit. They have something like 10,000 volunteer mentors across the country, mostly retired execs, former business owners, people with deep real-world experience.
And I just help you.
For free. They offer one-on-one mentorship, often via Zoom now, but also in person. Plus, they have tons of online resources, training modules, templates for business plans or SOWs like we discussed, articles, industry data reports. It's an incredible resource.
Wow, free mentorship from experienced people. That's huge. What else?
Lots of networking events, often connected to universities, local startup groups, industry associations. Just getting out and talking to people can lead to connections and insights. Pitch fests can be good practice and offer feedback, though again, you're sharing your idea publicly.
Incubators.
Incubators and accelerators, often linked with universities too, can provide office space, resources, structured programs, and mentorship for early-stage companies. Sometimes you can even tap into university students for senior design projects.
Really? Get students to work on your product?
Potentially, yes. For academic credit, they might do development work. The key is the university usually ensures the students don't retain ownership of the IP developed for your project. It can be a low-cost way to explore an idea, maybe get a PP built. And of course, there are countless books, blogs, and freelance consultants specializing in product development.
So help is definitely out there if you look for it.
Definitely. You just need to tap into that ecosystem.
Let's make this concrete with that example from the source Q&A. Nancy's idea. Taking something simple, like a K-cup drawer, and adapting it for storing diabetes supplies. How would the principles we've discussed apply there?
That's a great case study because it touches on several points. First, the idea itself, adapting an existing product for a new niche. Is there a real need among diabetics for a better storage solution? That's the first research question.
Okay, market need first.
Then the approach. Should she go to the original K-cup drawer manufacturer? Maybe. But as the source expert noted, they might not be interested in a potentially lower volume medical application, or they might just take the idea themselves. Big risk.
Right.
So she probably needs to think about developing it independently or with a partner. That brings up IP. Even though the drawer exists, using it for a totally different application, like diabetic supplies, maybe with specific modifications for lancets or test strips, could potentially be patentable. She'd need a patent search focused on medical organizers and diabetic supplies.
So navigate the IP landscape carefully.
Very carefully. And this is where someone like a SCORE mentor could be invaluable. If she finds a mentor with experience in consumer products, manufacturing, or even the medical device space, they could guide her through assessing the market need, exploring manufacturing options, thinking through the IP strategy.
Especially if she doesn't have that background herself.
Exactly. For someone without direct expertise, leveraging partners and mentors is absolutely the key to navigating this complex process effectively.
What an incredible journey we've mapped out today. From just having that spark of an idea through all the research, the planning, those distinct phases, alpha, beta, pilot understanding, funding, the market, and all the critical protections like IP and compliance.
It's definitely a lot to take in.
It is, but hopefully this deep dive gives you a much better framework, a shortcut to understanding the key milestones and potential pitfalls.
And as you listen, maybe think about which part of this process feels most relevant or maybe most challenging for your idea right now. Is it the initial market validation? The funding strategy? Finding the right partner?
Yeah, where do you need to focus next?
Because just knowing this stuff isn't enough, right? It's about understanding it, applying it critically to your own situation.
Yeah.
There's so much information out there, but thinking clearly about your path is what matters.
Absolutely. So here's a final thought for you to chew on. We've seen that even the most groundbreaking product has to travel a complex yet fairly defined path to reach the market. Thinking about your own world, your work, your community, what problem, maybe one you face every day, hasn't been solved well yet. Could that be the starting point for your own product journey now that you have a better sense of the road ahead?
We hope you enjoyed the SCORE podcast and learned something valuable from it. For more information about SCORE or to request the help of a mentor, visit www.score.org. Have a great day, and we wish you much success.